Hey there, and welcome to the Transparently Jordan podcast, where I'll be talking with a new guest each week, and we'll be covering topics in health, fitness, lifestyle, and so much more. So stick around and let's get into today's episode.
This is Radiant Voices Media.
And I was like, okay, so platforms are part of a reformer. All right, have a look at what that actually means. Looked it up in the dictionary. Platform, a raised level upon which people and things can stand. And I thought, if that is the universe, right, saying that, okay, that's exactly what you want. You want people to go through this process of doing hard things. By doing hard things, especially together, that is a raised level.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to another new episode. Today's episode is a bit of a special one because it is the first time that I'm doing one of two parts. So you are going to be listening into part one of James Trenerry today. We are going to be chatting about Platfrm, James's gym. We are going to be talking about the concept of the gym, training in general, running, Pilates, all of that fun stuff. And then in part two, I will chat with you in that episode next week when we go into a little bit more personal discussion with James. He gets vulnerable. We go through the vulnerability corner and have some fun discussions there as well. I hope you all enjoyed the last episode, the Mind Body Blueprint. That, of course, is going to be a brand new segment that I'm going to be doing here and there. I feel like I mentioned in the last episode, it's nice to have little 5-10 minute episodes here and there so that when you are going for a short little walk or if you have a short commute to the center, you can tune in to the shorter episodes versus listening into the longer kind of hour plus episodes like these ones. So again, I am just going to be chatting about anything mind, body, business, anything that kind of comes to mind, and just chatting through a couple of my experiences with the topic. I am not going to be chatting very much at the beginning of this episode because we have a lot of content to get through. I am super excited for you all to hear it, so let's get into today's episode. People are busy and yourself included. Yeah. So just trained this morning. What time does the gym open? Like, do you have classes and whatnot this morning?
Yeah, we did. So I went to the platform in Mile End today.
Yeah.
And we've got classes from 6 a.m. on a Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
All the way till 12. So 2 classes per room. So we have 2 rooms there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, one's a reformer room and one's what we call the run and weights room.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into a strength class at 8.
Yeah.
But they'll be there till at 1 o'clock.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And then North Adelaide, they'll be there till at least 2 or 3.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, about 25 classes a day. What are we? Saturday? No, there's about 15 classes on a Saturday at North Adelaide, and I think there's about 12 at Mile End at the moment.
Yeah. When did you start Platfrm?
2022?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit.
Okay.
September 2022.
Yeah. How did that come about?
Oh, mate, well, Platform.
Yeah.
Well, I think Platform was just a eventuation of everything I've always done in the fitness industry.
Yeah. Okay.
Just culminating into the one brand or one banner.
Okay.
So, I've been teaching reformer. I wouldn't say I'm a Pilates instructor. I wouldn't say I've ever taught that.
Yeah.
But I've been teaching reformer for now about 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
When I first started out in the fitness industry, I was also a running coach and a PT.
Yeah.
And then when I first started opening my own KX Pilates studios back in the day in 2016, I always wanted to ensure that the clients who came to a KX studio also had access to a gym, a gym-based environment.
Yeah. Okay.
And at the time, I managed to work in a partnership with a a gym called the Fit Space.
Okay.
So got started with them as a bit of a partnership. Like we co-owned the Fit Space. It was someone else's brand, but I jumped on as a bit of an investor, a bit of a business partner type situation.
Yeah.
And there was a KX underneath that.
Yeah.
So that was at the time sort of the best bridging between people having access to a reformer studio and a gym.
Yeah.
But then, over time, I guess my style of teaching on a reformer was very different to like the KX Pilates brand
Right.
and training methodologies.
Yeah.
So we were definitely more like a strength-based version of reformer, looking at the reformer like a piece of strength training equipment or resistance equipment as opposed to a Pilates machine. And making sure that we use strength training principles as opposed to Pilates principles to teach those classes.
Yeah.
And that was definitely where the path started to diverge away from them. Great brand to be a part of, with them for, as I said, 8 years, and I was with them when there was only 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And now there's hundreds, and they're all over the world. So it was a really great experience. But yeah, we kind of just grew apart, and as we grew apart, myself and KX Pilates, I wasn't, there was this there's this James's version of it, and then there's the KX version of it. So it was, we just grew apart eventually, and then I ended up, talking to a few people about it. How I was really discouraged at the time, and not being able to open anymore due to the fact that we weren't aligned anymore. And when you've got so many of them, X amount of them, sorry, you're not allowed to open anymore within in a franchise group. So I was capped at where I could go in, I guess, my journey.
Yeah.
I knew that there was more to be done. So I decided to close or sell what I had.
Yeah.
And then start Platfrm. So Platfrm started in 2022. I think it was probably always there.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when I did start in fitness, probably 2013, talking to another mate of mine who also worked at KX at the time.
Yeah.
And he was always in my ear about, we need to just open our own gym that has reformers in it, something to that effect. And I suppose at the time I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea, but it's so fresh into the industry, had the doubts.
Yeah.
Drew it up on a plan, had it mapped out.
Yeah.
And once again, my closest ability to get people to do both reformer and the gym was I was a PT in Richmond in Melbourne, and I also worked at a couple of KXs in the area, and it just so happened that a lot of people who I was teaching on the reformer were also very interested in doing more one-on-one personal stuff, but not on the reformer, in the gym, and then outside. So that was as close as that was, and I think it's always been there, but it's just taken I guess 10 years of practice and fucking shit up and a lot of time and money and tears. But we're here now, and we're 2 years in. And I dare say there's still more not to be fixed, more problems to be solved internally in regards to, are we the best possible product or service?
Yeah.
The reformer 100% is that stuff. We call it strength-based reformer.
Right. Okay.
And that is just a different method of teaching people how to work out on the reformer. And that's, I would dare say I've been teaching like that for a number of years now.
Yeah.
And there's still a place for it.
Right.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
The run and weights room, the idea of running as a group fitness class is very scary for people. It is very intimidating for people. I know that you're a runner. I follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
You do some amazing stuff.
Thank you.
It would have taken you a lot to get there.
Yeah.
A lot to get there.
I started when I was 12 years old.
Yeah, for sure. And what we find is that there aren't a lot of running group fitness classes, especially here in Adelaide. So very successful Barry's Boot Camp, very successful 1R in Melbourne, Orange Theory. They've got rowers and treadies and weights and things like that, TV based. Barry's Boot Camp have treadmills and dumbbells and like bands.
Right.
1R do like they've got a lot of different offerings. They've got in their run and weights room, or their treadmill room, they've got treadmills and once again just dumbbells.
Yeah.
We've got treadmills, dumbbells, barbells, more like a gym environment.
Yeah.
So getting people to do a little bit of both, I guess, is the running by itself is quite intimidating, but then to mix it all together, it's just something that nobody else does.
Yeah.
I'm sure more people will get into it.
Yeah.
More brands, I'm sure they're going to start doing that a lot more. And I think that's because of the fact that once you get into the running component, as you'd know, it's such an awesome like endorphin high. You know, it's one of those things that your body does naturally. And when you get over that hump of this feels like shit, it feels amazing. There's nothing like it. And if we can provide that to people in a group fitness setting where they've got that guidance and support, but also it feels a bit more energized, it's a bit more pumped up. In fact, one of our biggest problems is put that intimidation part aside. When they get so good at it, they're like, you know what? I don't actually have to come here anymore,
Right.
because I can run outside. But then
Yeah.
it's the weights part that they miss, right? Because I guess, as you know, runners need a combination of the running and then strength training so that they can bulletproof themselves. You find a lot of runners who have injuries are commonly overuse injuries where they run too much too soon, but then they forego the strength component or don't realize how important that actually is. So it's great to be able to offer that as a service. The only next iteration that would have to do to really like seal the deal on that is we'll get some ski ergs in there. You know, we've only got treadmills. When I say only, we've got treadmills, we've got barbells, we've got dumbbells. Really, the only thing missing that puts the icing on the cake is probably we've got bike ergs for people who have injuries or concerns running. The next thing would be ski ergs, and then I don't think there's anything else we could potentially do. You know, you've got it all from there.
But I think the community aspect of it is quite important as well.
Oh, for
Because,
sure.
you know, going back to runners, yes, the strength is quite important because that's probably what a lot of runners miss. But I think running is it's such a big and massive thing all of a sudden the last couple of years. But B, I think a lot of runners, like the reason why run groups, for example, are so popular these days is because I think runners lack that community and lack training with one another. So I think in an environment like what you guys provide, it gives people that community and that sense of community, which is so important with fitness. And I think that's the differentiation between group fitness versus, you know, I go to a gym by myself and I see the same people every single morning at 5 a.m. and don't talk to them at all. So, you know, that's such an important aspect is the community of it.
For sure. Funny you say that. We've got a lot of people who come to our strength classes. So one of the other class we do in that room is just strength. So it's bench press, back squats, deadlifts for the first half. And then the second half is like Olympic lifting, CrossFit exercises, and then traditional like powerlifting stuff. And what you'll find is that's like a progression-based class over a period of 8 weeks. But the people who come to that class, because it feels like an individual gym workout, but with 16 other people in the room. So people come in and they, like what you're saying, they want to go to the gym, but they also just want to talk to people. And sometimes you go to the gym, it really depends on the gym that you go to. Some are more obviously about the aesthetics and the bodybuilding part, and some not so much. And sometimes with the bodybuilding and aesthetic types of gyms, that can be intimidating for some and then quite clicky for others who are all on that journey. It depends, really. I mean, it doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you are, because that's where you are in your spectrum, that's your journey. But we get a lot of people who come in and they want that type of gym workout where it's sets, reps, sets and reps and rest time. So it's not like thrashing yourself all the time, but they don't want to go alone and they want to be able to talk to people about it. They've got a lot of questions. You know, we have a lot of people who come in and have heaps of questions about, you know, obviously the traditional stuff, bench press, back squats, deadlifts, but then like Olympic lifting, because they've seen it on Instagram, they want to do it, but they don't want to go somewhere where there's 50 other people in the room. They want that more one-on-one personalized attention. They want to know that the class is tailored to the people in the room, and there's only a handful of things we do. So say, for example, one of the main differences in that particular class, or, you know, speed and endurance, which is the other classes in that room, you're only really doing, 4 exercises.
Right.
You know, it's not like 52 different things over an hour and you spend a short amount of time doing them. It's all sets and reps based. So I guess what that does for people is ensures that, cool, I've got my squat rack, I've got my weights, you tell me what to do, I'm going to get the support I need. I'm not going to be asked to do anything that I'm not able to do, where it's too much of a skill requirement. and then it's kind of like work at your own pace. You don't. It's not. It depends. It does depend on the class, but it's not like you're on the clock. You know, you don't have to rush through the work. It's so heavy, or it's heavy enough that you have to rest.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to get the most out of your time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the benefits that we provide as well with a small group class of only 16 people.
Yeah.
What we find is that when people come from the larger type gyms or larger type group fitness formats, we are providing them more education about like, that's way too light, that's way too light, that's way too light. And then they work with their adequate load. So they're working with, 2 or 3 reps to failure. And it's so dramatically different to what they've been exposed to before that sometimes I think they think we're taking the piss. As in like, no, you go harder, go harder, go harder. And what we're actually doing is saying, oh, no, you are so far from where you should be that you think I'm trying to put this on. It's like, no, you're like, 10 reps away from where you should be, because you're not really getting that care and attention elsewhere, which can be off-putting for some, because then they obviously experience DOMs and they're not used to that. They're like, well, I go to the gym quite a lot, and then I come to yours and I feel sore. It's like, well, that's what happens if you've been training a certain way for a little while and you switch it up. But coming back to the community aspect, there's no better feel or sensation in either room, the reformer room or the run and weights room, just watching people connect over like the hard thing.
Right.
So one of the main things that we love about the run and weights room, let's say, is in our endurance classes, it's usually like a 22-minute block of running with undulating speeds, tempos, inclines, declines, whatever's going on. The trainer programs that class. But there's a particular section of the class in every single class. We call it a 5-minute, how far can you get? And that's like your benchmark.
Yeah.
And that might be at the start, it might be in the middle, it might be at the end, it might be somewhere in there. But we've programmed that into the class for that exact particular purpose, because what it does, it allows people to benchmark their performance, but also when clients hear, all right, guys, let's get this 5-minute, how far can you get? Like, people like to, their hair goes up a bit tighter, they're like, they really settle in for their like,
Get down a little
bit.
Yeah,
They do. Absolutely. And then, we've got some different lighting in there. So the lights change and like the music goes up, and it doesn't matter if you're at the high end of the spectrum or the low end of the spectrum. This is my 5 minutes to either absolutely fucking pump it, or all right, you're not gonna mess with me for at least another 5 minutes. So I've got my own thing, and then you get that competitive nature around it too. Like you'll see, clients, the ones who come to classes all the time, and I know you're in my class. They like look at each other's speeds and look at each other's paces, and they like to like. You get the odd message afterwards, like, "Oh, how far did that guy go?" Yeah. And that's cool because people, they want to see improvement in their health and fitness, but there's also coming back to the community part about doing the hard things together. Especially when it comes to running, as you're saying, it is hard. You always, if you're new to running, you don't want to go running with someone who's so much better than you are. You just don't, because that's very off-putting. You always want to perform with someone who's like at your level or just a bit further, but not to the degree where, okay, I'm brand new and you're running at 4:30s. Not fun. Not fun. Funnily enough, there's actually some research I think they did about rats.
Right.
Might have been rats, might have been another.
Yeah.
But the idea was, they got these, we'll call them marsupials, to play a game with each other, but the more one of them lost, the less enticed they were to continue playing the game. So when it comes to obviously group fitness or community-based things, people want to win sometimes. They want to feel like they're accomplishing something. They want to feel like they're gaining more confidence and skills and capabilities. It's actually one of the reasons why we've structured our classes in both rooms the way we have. Fundamentals, intermediate and advanced in the reformer room, an 8-week block of work in strength classes, speed and endurance in the run and weights classes, because it allows people to, first and foremost, feel comfortable. I need to learn the skill of what I'm doing first.
Mhm.
Because if I don't learn that skill, I feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to somewhere where I feel like an idiot.
Yeah.
You know? So we allow them to gain the skills and capabilities, which then grows confidence.
Yeah.
Once they have the confidence to do the thing, they generally have more fun doing the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And when they have more fun doing the thing, they then start the retention's there and the consistency's there, and then the results are there. And the missing part of that element for a lot of people, funnily enough, this is actually a piece of research too. If it's too hard too early, they lose interest.
Yeah.
If they feel like the intensity is too much too soon, lose interest. If they feel like an idiot, they're not going back. If they're not having fun, they don't hang around.
Yeah.
And if they're not seeing results, what's the point? And this is this interesting, the last part's the results factor.
Yeah.
Whatever you do in health and fitness, I believe that people like it also to be measurable. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, well, why would you, with your running goals, why do you keep going back to run a marathon? Like, you've already done it. What's the point?
Yeah.
You want to get faster. You want to feel more comfortable. You want to feel more confident.
Yeah.
That's why you keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's exciting to beat your own goal. You know,
Mhm.
so everything we do at Platform is benchmarked.
Yeah.
So it allows people to, track where they're at and inherently feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's so many hang-ups these days about, self-esteem and mental health and body image and just not feeling like I don't look like I fit in,
Yeah. Yeah.
So to give that to people, that confidence of it doesn't matter what you look like, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter how fit you are, because our job is to send you through this pipeline of work that gets you to the end.
Yeah.
The only thing I need from you is commitment.
Yeah.
And the only thing I need from you is consistency. But it's on us, me and my team of trainers to provide a workout or an environment that fosters that growth.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's important, like, to have those measurable changes as well, because
Yep.
I think in the group space, that's where a lot of gyms have it wrong or don't include. I always pick on CrossFit because that's what I did for 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I have to compare about. But,
Yep.
some of the gyms that I went to, it's just kind of an ever going new workout every day
Yep.
as fast as you can.
Yep.
There's no testing for a 1 rep max or
Yep.
testing for this and that,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
I think the good gyms or the gyms that show those changes are often the more successful gyms because, like you were saying, people want to come back if they see results, if they're getting better. And I think in the group space, like, yeah, community is important. Yeah, you want to feel good, and yeah, you want to just work out. But for a lot of people, you only get so high,
Yep.
and after that, you could have a member that stays for 6 months or 2 years, but it's the members that are there for 7, 8, 9 years that are the ones that actually see the change.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
you've seen them 7 years ago, how they were then versus how they are now. And
Yep.
I think there are very few gyms that do that,
Yep.
and very few. Myself, when I was in CrossFit, I did CrossFit back in Canada
Yep.
and a few gyms here, but it wasn't until I found that good gym that I considered good that showed me the change that I stuck around for 3 or 4 years, and
Yep.
then I moved to Australia,
Of course.
so left there. But I think again that's where a lot of gyms go wrong, is that measuring. How do you guys, like, how often would you guys, is it an 8-week block all the time? Is that kind of
Yeah.
what people expect, or?
So in the reformer room,
Yeah.
that's the periodized or the progressive overload component of that is we start them in a fundamentals class, which is pretty much learn the skills, learn the basics, and understand the lingo and language of what we do.
Yeah.
And then there's an intermediate class, which we recommend after 5 or so fundamentals classes. And that's by nature more intense than a fundamentals class. And then from there, up the top, there's what we call the advanced class. And that's once again, more intensity, usually a bit more dynamic, like 0 rest. So this is like the upper echelon of that particular room, right? And we tell people to jump into that class usually after, let's say, 15 to 20 intermediate classes.
Yeah.
But then within those classes themselves, because it's based around strength training principles, you then have the ability to make that class more or less intense based on yourself.
Right.
So if you think about the pipeline overall, you're measuring your performance by what class level you're in, right? But then you're also measuring your performance by, okay, so the last time I did this exercise, I did it on these particular springs, or I used that particular dumbbell. Now I can do it on this particular set of springs or this particular dumbbell.
Yeah.
So you've got that measurable component there.
Yeah.
From there, in the strength classes, that's always an 8-week block of work, primarily focused on bench press, back squats, and deadlifts, and that starts with the testing and ends with the testing. Okay, so at the start of the block, you'll probably choose 2 of the 3 big lifts. Just by the nature of it, you don't really have the time to do 3 of them all the time, so you'd probably test 2 of them. If you wanted to, you'd come more often, but you've got other things to do. So you test 2 of them, usually back squats, bench press, or deadlifts, and then you do at the start. Then we've got 3 weeks of like volume, so endurance. So that's usually 8 to 10 reps. Another 3 weeks of intensity. So we're talking like 6 reps, 4 reps, 3 reps kind of stuff. And then we have a deload week, and then we have another testing week. So they use the benchmark or the 1 rep max test from week 1 or week 0, and then they test again at the end of week 8. I think the best part about that is, especially when new people come through, and it's just newbie gains. That's honestly just a skill. Like, I get it. You're getting better at it, and that is awesome to see. That you are so you've got less fear and you've got more capability. Doesn't exactly equal strength from you're growing muscular strength, but it's definitely a central nervous system thing and a coordination type thing. So that's awesome to see. And the dramatic improvement from people who are brand new to it is always going to be better than those who are more proficient. Untrained people see growth quicker than trained people. We just know that to be true. Usain Bolt spends 4 years cutting off 0.01 of a second. Whereas if you had someone brand new starting a run program, they'd get better exponentially, right? Or a lot quicker. And then in the runner weights room, you've got an endurance class and a speed class. So these are different types of outputs. Longer, slow, steady cardio, lighter weights on the gym floor, shorter, high intensity cardio, heavier weights on the gym floor. You're using your knowledge of what you've lifted in a strength class, your 6 reps max, your 5, your 3s, whatever's. That's then transferred into a speed class. So a speed class is only ever barbell work that's of a 6 or a 5 or a 4 rep max, kind of heavy. So you kind of know what that is from your experience in strength, and then some plyometrics. But then we use endurance classes once again as the educational tool to help people feel more comfortable when they get to a speed class. So an endurance class, let's say it's broken up into segments of minutes or distance. It's usually like a 4-minute effort, a 3-minute effort, maybe some 5-minute efforts, maybe some like just short 1-minute efforts. But what we're training them to do in endurance classes, it's a longer period of time, so they're more comfortable with the actual running aspect of it. They get to play around with like the speed and the incline and the deceleration, those types of things. And those are the transferable skills. So when they get to a speed class, it's very much like, oh, I know my hard run pace because I've done that. I know what that is. I know my sprint pace. We give them guidance around your run pace. Let's say for an endurance class, might be a 10, which is 6 minutes per K. Every 2 weeks or so, we encourage them to increase their run pace by like 0.5, Or if you're a runner outside and you know your run pace outside, we encourage them to run 30 or 15 to 30 seconds faster per minute per K. So the treadmills that we use have that on the display, which is awesome. So that's a measurable thing. We keep the blocks the same in terms of time, 20 or 22 minutes in endurance classes, so that clients know how far they're getting. It's a big win. Once again, it depends on where you're at, but the guys who are fully confident and absolutely love it, they will try to get as close to like 5 kilometers in 22 minutes as possible, and they are properly pumping it. And then you'll see it on their Strava, and that's exciting, right? That builds community online as well. But no, that's how we measure those aspects of their health and fitness journey. We'll be updating our app soon, so that people can input that data into the app. Kind of annoys me that Revel got to it first, but they've just updated their app over the Christmas period, and they're able to put that in there now. It's like, you
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
exactly the right thing to do. I think the difficulty with, let's say, reformer studios or Pilates studios is it's very hard to track your progress. Unless you've got a progressive pipeline of classes, it's very hard to see, am I getting better at this? I'm still genuinely having fun, but am I getting physically stronger? Am I getting mentally more resilient? How's my cardiovascular capacity going? Especially if the classes are like themed classes,
Yeah.
like it might be like a bum and abs class or just an abs class or a
Yeah.
tone and sculpt class, and
Yeah.
like they're all great because they add a little bit of flair and a bit of theme to it all, and that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I guess what we're trying to do we call it strength-based reformer, from a strength training perspective, it's as if you have a PT and it's as if you're going to the gym, but your preferred exercise equipment is the reformer. It's not the barbell. It's not the dumbbell. It essentially works exactly the same as a barbell and dumbbell. The only difference being that the springs carry it's called dynamic load, where the load changes as the spring stretches. So, a spring might start at 10 kilos, but as it stretches further, it ends up equating to 15 kilos. Now, what that means is it takes a little bit longer for the effect to sink in. So it's a bit more of an endurance-based type exercise, unless it was really heavy. When we can program like 5 rep max things or 6 rep max things. Anyway, we find that some people prefer that as an approach of, okay, it doesn't feel hard straight away. And that's awesome for some people, because I just want to ease into it. Whereas, you do deadlifts, 5 rep max deadlifts are hard from the get-go. Because they've only got 5 to do. So they are... And that is a different feeling for people, because on the reformer, it takes a while to sink in. It's like, okay, fatigue is on, it takes like, 15 reps or whatever. But you you do a back squat, deadlift, or a bench press, and you're doing, 5 reps of them. That's heavy straight away. You know that's you know what you're in for from the get-go. And some people just don't like that. And that's just due to graded exposure to that particular methodology of exercise. And that's okay, because what we're able to do is you kind of use the reformer room as the gateway drug to the runner weights room, but it goes the other way as well. You have people who are like, oh, I've always seen reformers, but they've always been in very pretty studios, and there just seems to be a lot of chicks with like really high-end activewear. One of the reasons that we call it strength-based reformer, one of the reasons that our color scheme is gray, black, and concrete, is because they're very gender-neutral tones. It's not off-putting to like the male demographic, and it's also not off-putting to the female demographic, because it also looks a little bit high-end. So that's appealing to both the ladies and the guys, especially when the guys have always seen a reformer, and they kind of know it's needed, especially like footy players or soccer players or whoever. It doesn't really matter what you are, what you do, but it's just good for you because it allows you to get into positions that you might not otherwise be able to get into. So to be able to walk past, let's say, the reformer room, and this is by design, you always have to go past the reformer room to get to the runner weights room. So if you've never been in the reformer room, at least you can walk past it. You see it a couple of times. You're like, oh, that doesn't look too hard, and then the other way around, you've got to invite people to come through into the runner weights room. Right, it's a bit further down the back usually, and it's a closed room. Right, it's soundproof. It's closed. It's fucking loud. It's got, once again, some lighting in there, but not like a disco. More so that it changes the mood a little bit. But what we ask the guys to do when they teach reformer classes is talk about the benefits of bench press. If they're doing front work or push-ups on the footbar, let's say, hey guys, this is exactly like a bench press. Did you know that red spring is worth 25 kilos? Did you know the barbell is only worth 20 kilos? If you have any hesitations around that, just know that you're lifting now quite substantial load on the reformer. The only difference is in that room, I'm only going to ask you to do 8 of them, where in this room, you have to do 15 of them for the same outcome. So it works well like that. And that was partially one of the reasons why I wanted to have both offerings in the one room, because I, like what you were saying, no matter what you do, you're at some point always going to need more, right?
Yeah.
And that's how progressive overload works, and that's how, I guess, fitness works, is to get better at running. Yes, you have to do running, but you have to do fast running, slow running. You have to do weights. You might have to do some cycling, because that's always going to help. Running by itself is only going to get you so far. Lifting weights by themselves only get you so far. Hence why it's called strength and conditioning, because you need the conditioning component too. But also, like, the reformer is only going to get you so far. And we know that clients like variety. You know, variety is the spice of life. They like a little bit of certainty, but they also like a bit of uncertainty. That actually comes from Tony Robbins, the 6 human needs. But they've got their certainty, that's the reformer. They've got their uncertainty, which is the run and weights room, or vice versa. And this is where it comes back to the only other element we'll probably look at adding is like some ski ergs and some bikes, is because that allows for that extra bit of conditioning, which is time off the legs. You know, as you know, as a runner, there's only so much of it you can do throughout the week. You can have easy runs, you can have hard runs, you can have recovery sessions. And that's what we do. But also sometimes you just want just that tiny little bit extra, you know. It doesn't have to be dramatic. You might, for a runner outside, you probably mix it up between doing, okay, I'm going to do a run at the beach, which is flat and fast, versus a trail.
Right.
You know? And that's exciting because the environment's different. It feels different in my body. So incorporating those elements too is good. But I guess what we're trying to do is just genuinely solve people's problems. You know, it's a fitness offering because you need fitness. I like fitness. I don't know. If you've got to, as a business operator, I firmly believe you're in there to solve the problem. The problem for a lot of people is, I don't know how to do it. I feel scared about it. How do I do it well? How do I not feel like an idiot? But then it's like, I just don't know what to do. In terms of not just that particular thing, but it's, you know, you've got, we joke about it a lot, but TikTok, Instagram, all these other sources now of information that flood people. They're hearing like, pick it up like this, don't pick it up like that. Eat this, but don't eat that. At this stage of life, do this type of cardio, but not this type of cardio. Work out at that time of day, but not this time of day, unless it's that time of day, unless you've had that. Right? That's so overwhelming for people, right? Fitness is kind of like, you know, just going to an accountant or a mechanic or whatever and just not knowing what language you're talking about, but having to trust those people. So the way in which we program our classes is very much, if it's not in the literature, we're not going to do it. Okay, because I don't want you to fall into this false sense of misinformation, but like self-deprecating beliefs. Like you never hear us use words like sculpt and tone, because whilst that is more appealing to some people, it means muscle growth. It means muscle growth with a reduction of body fat. What do you want to do to build muscle? You lift heavy weights. You know, you can. I mean, light loads to failure also works. But we can't be lifting 2 or 3 kilo dumbbells all the time. You've got to be lifting the heavy stuff. Also for you know, neuroplasticity and bone density and heart health and all these other things. There's so much more important stuff there. But then it's like, it's not only that, then it's like the cost of exercise. It's like, well, how many gyms do I have to fucking go to get the variety I want, right? We provide, you know, the majority of what people love. We also do a little bit of yoga, which is cool. So we're able to solve the problem of the price point. We solve the problem of the convenience. We solve the problem of the small group class, right? We're trying to really enable people. Honestly, we talk about it like, you should be so good at this that you don't need to come here anymore. Which sounds like a stupid thing to say as a business owner, but that's the truth. I want you to be so good at this that you can actually take these skills and go back to the gym, or you can take these skills and be a runner. Like there's no point. It's kind of like being a physiotherapist and saying, no, I want you to keep coming back even though your problem's fixed. That's not fair. So as a gym owner, I want you to keep coming back because you think it's fun. I want you to keep coming back because of the community, not because you think you need me. Because I can't be your guru. You know, it's not in me. I can't. There's like, there's things that you want to do outside of work, but also it's important I think it's really important for people to become self-sufficient and reliant on just what they can do by themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's really unfortunate to see that, and I hate talking like this, but like, you know, people talk about like millennials being lazy
Yeah.
or stuff like
Yeah.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
There has been a dramatic shift of, you know, I need validation. You know, I need it's got to be on my Instagram
Yep,
story, or it's got to be
exactly.
somewhere
Yeah.
of it. But also, who doesn't love a little bit of that?
Yeah.
You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot. You know, what is the need? Like, where does that come from for you? There's a saying I've got, like, what's in there for you? What's in that? When I talk to people who are like going through a thing or having a moment or interesting questions, or like, why did you say it like that? What's in there for you? And a lot of us these days have a lot of these, you know, stories. You know, we attach stories to things.
Yep. Everybody has one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you've got your own story, but then like, oh, you know, I'm going through an interesting personal situation at the moment where it's a bit of a uncertain period of time, right? But it's important not to attach a story to, you know, did I see that person today, or did I hear back from that person today, or you know, what's in there for them? Because all that does is make the situation feel like heavier.
Yeah.
And there's no freedom in that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So coming back to the solving of people's problems, I don't know, that went around like this.
That's good, though.
That is.
Always come back to
the
circle.
solving of people's problems, right? The reason we called it, or the reason I called it Platfrm, I was just like, what's a name that's resonates with the brand that I'm trying to create?
Yeah.
That's a bit playful.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so Platfrm's a part of a reformer. Right, have a look at what that actually means.
Yeah.
Looked it up in the dictionary. Platform, a raised level upon which people and things can stand.
Right.
And I thought, if that is the universe, right, saying that, okay, that's exactly what you want. You want people to go through this process of doing hard things. By doing hard things, especially together, that is a raised level upon which people and things can stand, right?
Yeah.
It also comes from the idea of, if you say you've got a marathon goal, right, and you're starting from an absolute base of 0, it's always better to be like that. That's a hard thing, right? You're trying so hard to reach this goal. It's so far above you. It just looks too hard to accomplish.
Yeah.
But if we can get people's base level of fitness and psychology to a point where they're already operating at, let's say it was like a scale of 1 to 10, right? The marathon's the 10, you're at a 1 or a 0 right now. If I can get your base level of fitness up to like a 6 or a 7, the 10's only, you know, 8, 9, 10.
Yep, exactly.
You are so close. So we've raised your level so no matter what your goal, right? You could go from, I just want to run a 10K fast, I want to run a marathon, I want to do a half Ironman, whatever.
Yeah.
You are already so fit,
Yeah.
psychologically conditioned, physically fit, and just generally positive about what you can do, that your goal or the ceiling is never too far out of reach, because we've lifted the floor.
Yeah.
A lot of people try to get to the ceiling.
Yeah.
You got to lift the floor.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you've got to lift the floor. You'll be so much better off.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting too. And
and how do you guys get, like, because you brought up a few good points there, and I always find it interesting when you have, you know, you have members and they have access to all of these services. And it's quite important to use all of the services. You know, going back to the reformer and the Pilates, for example, I always find that interesting, because here in Australia, I think one thing in the fitness community that Australia is so ahead of is the use of the reformer and the use of Pilates. I personally had never seen one or used it since I came to Australia, because in Canada, even in your physio clinic, we don't have reformers or Pilates or anything like that. And it's such a useful tool. And I think what we're seeing now from, you know, the footy teams, from the professional sports, is they're all accessing these reformers and these Pilates studios, because it is important. So how do you get, let's say, the male in the gym that's there for the run, that's there for the strength, to access? I know you're saying that they walk through the studio in the beginning, but, you know, I think it's still very common for the male to only do the strength component, and then
Yes.
the females to maybe only do the reformer
Yes.
component because
Yes.
they don't want to build too muscle or this
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do you get people to mix and match? I know you sprinkled in a few things. You get your coaches to talk
Talk
about
about
this
it.
and
Yep.
that, so
Yep.
that's important.
Yep.
But I think that's a very probably problematic thing sometimes for some people
Mm.
is to stick with what they know and
Mhm.
to not access these other
Mhm.
services.
Mhm. You've got to. I think firstly you've got to make it look appealing,
Mm.
right? This
Mhm.
is coming back to why our color scheme is neutral tones,
Yeah.
right? This is why we have you know, dumbbells up to 25 kilos in that particular room,
Mm.
right? Because if you look at the dumbbell selection and they're all like small weights, for someone who likes lifting heavy weights, that's not appealing. All the weights are black, so they're not pretty colored weights. It's not like pink, purples, and
Yeah.
blues,
Yeah.
right? The floor in our Mile End location is gym tiles,
Right. Okay.
right?
Yeah.
The floor in North Adelaide's carpet, but we'll change that soon because gym tiles just make it feel more appealing in that space.
Right.
But also, so there's that element of making it look and feel like something I might be interested in. And then I think the other element is the education around it. Okay, so these are the benefits to help you solve your problems. So your problem is, I always have hamstring issues, or I don't have a lot of hip mobility, or I don't have a lot of shoulder mobility, or that's a problem for me, right? So then we're able to educate around this is how working out on a reformer can help fix those problems, right? So that's important. So it's important to understand what the problems of the clients are, and then we build that into our marketing, and we build it into our education, right? So if you looked at our Instagram account, we don't do a lot of memes.
Okay.
We don't do a lot of like funny stuff.
Yeah.
It's all like every now and then there's like a bloopers reel or something from us, but it's all very matter of fact. It's all very science based. It's all very educational, which can sometimes be a little bit dry. So we like to sort of mix that in with the community aspects of it, the jokey kind of stuff. But we are very much about, I guess, providing the education, finding what it is that your problem is specifically, and talking to you about that during the session or during your workout. So one of the reasons that we keep the classes small is that there can be that one-on-one engagement and rapport building with the trainer who's able to say like, oh, how's your week going, right? And if you came in and said, look, I've been smashing these speed classes, or I've been doing heaps of weights, I don't feel great right now, but I still want to do an exit, I still want to work out. It's like, well, look, the reformer feels different on the body, right? That might be something that your body and mind needs this at this point in time. You can still exercise, but it's not as intense.
Right.
So helping them once again feel more comfortable in that space does become more appealing. I think it's important that we didn't go down the path of having like men's only classes, right? Because I think once again that kind of segregates people and almost tells them that it's Do you know what I mean by this? It's almost like saying, oh no, I want you to feel more comfortable, but there's actually no reason why you should feel uncomfortable. Not really. All I'm doing by having a men's only class is reinforcing how uncomfortable and weird this is for you because you're a guy. Right? One of the other things we don't do is make jokes of guys on social media about their reformer stuff. A lot of other companies, once again, the jokey and the meme stuff, it's like, when the footy boys come into a reformer class, I'm not going to fucking do that. Right? It's also one of the other things that we do, and this is just the way in which it turns out is, whilst it's great to have partners want to work out together, we actually not discourage it, but we often say, hey, maybe don't do a reformer class with your boyfriend for the first time, or maybe don't do a weights class with your girlfriend for the first time, because there's always kind of that little bit of course they can if they want to, obviously, but sometimes in my experience, what I've found is that like if the female client brings the boyfriend, and the boyfriend is usually dominates the gym, comes into the reformer room, they're like, did you made this hard on purpose because it cannot be this hard. And meanwhile the girlfriend's like just dominating the whole thing, and the guy's like, fumbling his way around, and that can be off-putting because it's like, you put them up to this. So no, this is actually how hard it actually is, right? So it's important to I think sometimes let them or just let people find their own way. Don't push it too hard either.
Yeah.
Because people don't like, I get it. Reformer, cool.
Yeah.
Just fucking leave me alone. So that's important as well, to not
Yeah.
shove it down people's throats, right? The graded exposure
Yeah.
of, once again, the set out of our studios, the sprinkling of things on Instagram, it's all very balanced.
Yeah.
It's important that you don't force people to do something they don't want to do. They've got to find their own way. They've got to find their own journey.
Yeah.
So that's also there. But honestly, I think one of the biggest factors is we don't call it Pilates as well. We call it strength-based reformer.
Yeah.
That has an appeal. Like, it's almost like it's a pro and a con.
Yeah.
The people who don't like the strength training word, which is what we're all doing anyway. Resistance training is strength training.
Yeah.
But they're like, oh, that sounds like something
sound-
too hard for me.
Yeah.
Right? But then other people are like, fuck yeah, strength training. That's my
Yeah.
fucking jam.
Yeah.
But on a reformer,
Yeah.
that's
What's this?
yeah, correct. Like, what's that all about? So that's important too. I think it's just that at the end, at the very granular level, it's just about knowing people
Yeah.
and the ability to read them and understand them. We talk a lot to the team about, once again, the 6 human needs of certainty, uncertainty, connection, growth, love, connection, that kind of stuff. But then also we talk to them about the skills and competency and confidence kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So we talk to them a little bit about, or also the big one is like the why,
Yeah.
right? This part's from Simon Sinek, the Golden Circle, where the company or whatever you're doing has to start with why.
Right.
What is the reason for it? Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's the what, then it's the how.
Yeah.
Okay. And so it goes outwards. But most people, the companies that don't seem to last forever start with the what, the how, and then the why comes later, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the big things that Apple did really well. They just, like, I believe it was like, obviously it was Steve Jobs, but he was like, oh, we just want to, like, why? We want to make your interaction with the device as seamless as possible. How? We just happen to make computers.
Yeah.
That's just, we want to make exercise accessible to all people.
Yeah.
We just happen to do run, weights, and reformer.
Yeah.
That's essentially it.
Yeah.
And all the stuff in the middle is what makes it work. It's
Yeah.
the education, the training development, the social media, the community aspects, the events, the fact that we have like class on Christmas Day. We've got, smoothies and coffees and juices and like all this other thing, all this other stuff. But the why is, to make the fitness fun, accessible, enjoyable, but also not cost the world, not cost the earth. Because if you've got multiple gym memberships, it kind of sucks, right?
Yeah. And a lot of people do. A lot of people, like, going back to what you were saying, is a lot of people want this and that, or you can't access it at this gym, so they have to get a membership at another gym. So it's important to have it all, really, because it just creates longevity, I think, really. And people, myself included, get bored quite easily. Some people get bored in a year, some people get bored in 5 years, but you're going to get bored eventually.
You will.
So to have a little bit of mix and variety is quite important for that regard as well.
Yeah, and there's a fine line. So this is one of the learnings from once again my time with KX back in the day. They had reformer studios, and then they expanded into bar studios, and then they expanded into cycle studios. And then they got into yoga studios, and then they got into running, right? Which is the part I used to run, as well as the reformer stuff for the studios. But I think the learning from them, and Aaron says this quite a lot, is like that was a big mistake, right? Trying to do so much, right, in so many different locations as well, and having so many different price points and so many different training methodologies, and like, where's your marketing spend going to go, and blah 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 blah. So they're like, oh, I'm gonna do all this kind of stuff, and he talks about it quite well to say, like, that was, we had to start with something small, expand to something big to realize that the something small was better. Right. And this is kind of where my head's at. It's like the reformer and the running weights, like that's enough, right? That's enough for me. I don't need more than that, right? Once again, if we look at getting these ergs in, that's fine. We're not like doing a dramatic reshape or refresh of what we do. There's no way that you can ultimately be all things to all people, right? There's no way. They're always going to want something different. Like, we run yoga classes in our runner weights room, but it's never going to be the exact same experience as a high-end like yoga class at Humankind, right? It's just not. It's just not.
Yeah.
That's not what we don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important as a business, like don't stretch too far.
Yeah.
Know the limit
Know your
of
parameters.
Oh, for
really.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because with all, and I was actually just having this conversation last night.
Mm.
It's that when you start adding more bolts, right, another one's going to come loose. When you start adding more like add-ons and just like, oh, let's do this now, let's do this now. It's like, well, who are we anymore? Like, what are we actually really good at?
Yeah.
You know, we are fucking good. Swearing, I love it. We are good at strength-based reformer,
Yeah.
running and weights.
Yeah.
Like that's our jam, right? That's our jam. We get into the ergs. We're not going to have like a erg-based class, but it will be an element of our existing class structure, just for that extra tiny bit of variety, right?
Yeah.
But it won't like take over.
Yeah.
Yoga is the offering that we have like 3 times a week, and it comes complimentary as part of your membership, right? But we know, like, we just know our limit.
Yeah.
And I reckon we're probably at our limit. And then, clients might say, we ever get this, we ever get that. It's like, well, you've got to understand that we also want to build something that's obviously consistent, like the reliability is there, the consistency is there.
Yeah.
It's not like it's already sometimes a bit overwhelming for people. But we want to build something that we can also scale, right? And it gets, the more you have added to it, the harder it is to build more of them. Moving forward, what we'll do is we'll have these flagship style platforms, which are the Run, Weights, Reformer, Yoga, the bigger ones.
Yeah.
We will have the flagship ones. We'll also have smaller versions of the flagship ones where the classes aren't that big, not 16 per class, maybe like 10s and 12s.
Okay.
And then we'll also do solo reformer rooms, right? Because that is never gone out of fashion, right? And people love that.
Yeah.
Trainers love it. Clients love it. It's also something that someone can get involved in without too much capital, right? A reformer studio, if you want to knock one of them up, you could build one for 40 grand. You could build one for 150 grand.
Yeah.
Platform, that's going to be at least a minimum $300,000 investment.
Right.
Like, we get all the equipment on finance and things like that. But it really depends on your fit out. North Adelaide was a bit cheaper to build than Mile End, because North Adelaide was already a pre-existing F45. Stuck a wall in the middle, put some, made it look a lot nicer. But Mile End, in a warehouse, we built every single thing you see there from scratch.
Right.
I probably won't do that again. That was a massive learning, right?
Yeah.
A massive learning.
Yeah.
Like, the fucking bathrooms themselves, like $100,000.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do that. Especially when it's needed when it's needed, but not all the time.
Yeah.
Plus, if you want to scale it, and if you want to give something to your employees and your trainers and people of the community, like, we've got people now who are, hey, are you looking for investors to grow this? Can I work with you to eventually have my own? Like, I really like what you're doing. Tell me more about what you're doing. But they've all got different desires, right? And if I was to say that, no, this is it for you, then that could be a massive turn off, to be like, well, I don't want that level of commitment. I'm only this is what I want. Right. And I think I found that with once again being part of the franchise world for such a long time. It's I always knew. I think week one with Aaron, I know him personally anyway. But I remember this conversation he was having with a long-term client. We're in reception. It was like week one or something, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, you're opening studios now." I'm like, James, what are you going to do? And Aaron's like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna have one." And I said, "One, mate, I'm gonna have at least 5." Right, at least 5, because I thought, like, one's just not enough. Right, it's just not. It's not going to be enough for me. So you've got to cater to the people who are like, well, I just want one studio, and I just want it to be my thing. Like, I'm not like you. Like, you do you, I'll do me. I want to be a part of what you're doing, but I don't want to do it to that level. It's like, great, you know how I can help you do that, and I can make that thing pump for you. Give you a nice healthy revenue stream. A nice bit of profit on top. If you want to step away from it, you probably are going to need 2 of them, because that's just by the nature of like, things break down if they, if you start earning so much revenue, if there's so many players on your team, you kind of need another one to share the load a little bit. But if that's what you want, I can help you get that, right? And I think that comes back down to just the problem solving of of the nature of, I guess, entrepreneurship is I'm here to solve the problem.
Alrighty, guys, and that is the end of part one. Again, stay tuned, hit that subscribe button. Part two, where James gets a little bit more vulnerable now, will be posted next week. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will talk to you all in the next episode.